Sabrina Carpenter's journey is the kind of story that reminds people that dreams don't bloom overnight but grow through storms, setbacks, tiny sparks of hope, and the courage to keep showing up even when the world seems too loud, too competitive, or too impossible to break into. Because Sabrina wasn't born into fame, she wasn't handed an easy ticket, but she carried something far more powerful. A burning voice inside her that refused to go silent, a belief so strong that even when doors stayed shut, she found windows, and when windows closed, she carved her own path with a courage that could light up a city. From a young girl in Pennsylvania singing into whatever object looked like a microphone, to posting covers online, to sending her voice into the world before the world even knew her name, Sabrina built her dream brick by brick, audition by audition, rejection by rejection, turning every "not this time" into fuel that made her sharper, tougher, more focused, and more determined to become the artist she knew she could be. Because people see the glitter now, the sold-out tours, the viral hits, the magnetic confidence, the reinvention, the power, but behind all that was a girl who stayed up late practicing vocals until her throat burned, who scribbled lyrics in notebooks while other kids slept, who studied performances the way others study textbooks, who pushed through fear, through doubt, through comparison, reminding herself over and over that no one becomes iconic by blending in, and that standing out means embracing the parts of yourself that feel different, even strange, and Sabrina embraced them all: the boldness, the softness, the humor, the bite, the sweetness, the sass, the vulnerability that she later poured into songs like "Because I Liked a Boy," "Fast Times," "Sue Me," and "Feather," tracks that weren't just catchy but carried a story of a girl who refused to be defined by the world's judgments, a girl who learned to turn heartbreak into melody. And as Sabrina's influence kept expanding, she proved again and again that true power comes not from perfection but from authenticity, from showing the world both the polished performances and the raw, unfiltered moments, the tears behind the stage lights, the hours of exhaustion hidden beneath the applause. Because Sabrina never pretended her journey was effortless. Instead, she embraced every flaw, every fear, every bump in the road and transformed them into storytelling gold, reminding people that you don't need to be born fearless to live fearlessly, you just need to decide that your dreams matter more than your excuses. And with every new song she released, she peeled back another layer of her heart, inviting listeners into her world with a vulnerability that felt refreshing in an industry obsessed with image, creating music that didn't just trend but truly touched people. From young girls discovering their voice to grown adults rediscovering their strength. Because Sabrina had a gift for saying the things people felt but couldn't articulate, a gift for turning pain into poetry and joy into electricity. And as she toured around the world, stepping on stages that once felt like distant fantasies, she carried within her the lessons of her early struggles, the late-night doubts, the anxious auditions, the feeling of being overlooked, the whispers that said, "You're not ready." And she used all of it as her armor, her fuel, her motivation to rise higher, sing louder, dream bigger. Because she knew that success wasn't just about fame or charts, but about touching lives. And that is exactly what she did, from empowering young fans to chase their passions fearlessly to inspiring adults to believe in second, third, and fourth chances. Sabrina became more than an artist, she became a symbol of persistence, a reminder that every dreamer has a place in this world, and that your journey is never too slow, too late, or too complicated to lead you somewhere beautiful. And as Sabrina Carpenter kept rising, she did something rare: she mastered the balance between reinvention and authenticity, evolving without ever losing the spark that made the world fall in love with her in the first place. Because even as her music grew bolder, her visuals became more iconic, and her confidence became undeniable, she still carried the softness of a girl who once dreamed with trembling hands and whispered hopes. And that contrast, the fierce performer and the tender dreamer, created a magnetic energy that pulled people toward her, reminding them that you can be powerful without losing your gentleness, ambitious without losing your heart, and driven without losing your humility. And every time Sabrina stepped onto a stage, whether it was a tiny room filled with a few hundred fans or a massive arena exploding with lights and screams, she performed with the same intensity, the same gratitude, the same love for the craft that kept her grounded from the beginning. Because Sabrina wasn't performing for fame, she was performing for connection, for expression, for the girl she once was and the millions she inspires now. and that purity showed in the way she smiled mid-performance, in the way she interacted with fans, in the way she sang lyrics that once belonged only to her diary pages but now belonged to the hearts of millions. And as the industry continued to shift, with trends constantly changing and expectations rising, Sabrina didn't panic or chase what others were doing. Instead, she trusted her vision, her voice, her artistry, building herself not as a temporary moment but as a timeless force, and with every new project, she proved that she wasn't here for a season, she was here to stay. And what made her rise even more extraordinary was the way she navigated challenges with maturity far beyond her years, never publicly lashing out, never collapsing under pressure, but quietly, steadily, transforming every difficulty into growth. And as Sabrina Carpenter stepped deeper into her artistic evolution, she began to understand that the most powerful thing she could ever offer the world wasn't perfection, but truth, the truth of who she was, the truth of where she came from, the truth of what it took to keep believing when everything seemed uncertain, and that truth echoed through every lyric she wrote, every performance she delivered, every interview where she laughed with sincerity and answered with honesty, showing people that behind the fame and the glamour lived a human being who still had fears, still had doubts, still had nights where she questioned whether she was enough, yet chose courage every single time, and that choice is what turned her from a talented artist into a phenomenon, because Sabrina didn't wait for permission to shine, she created her own spotlight, one brave decision at a time, and as she grew more confident in her own skin, she began pushing boundaries no one expected, experimenting with sound, visuals, storytelling, blending sweetness with sharpness, innocence with empowerment, humor with vulnerability, creating an identity so refreshing that audiences couldn't help but fall deeper in love with the rawness and the radiance she embodied, and the world watched as she transformed from a promising young star into a global powerhouse, someone whose voice carried not just melodies but messages, whose presence brought comfort, joy, and boldness to people who needed it, because Sabrina's journey became a reminder that the world doesn't decide your worth, you do, and once you claim that worth, everything around you begins to shift, and through all her success, she never lost the ability to laugh at herself, to find joy in simple moments, to cherish the people who lifted her, supported her, encouraged her through every high and low, because Sabrina understood something many forget: fame is temporary, but character is forever, and she chose, consciously, consistently, to stay kind. And as Sabrina Carpenter's world expanded, she realized that with every new milestone came new responsibility, the responsibility to honor her craft, to honor her supporters, to honor the young version of herself who dreamed of these moments long before they were real, and she carried that responsibility with grace, understanding that her voice could make people feel something powerful, something healing, something liberating, and she used that gift not as a weapon but as a bridge, connecting souls across continents with notes that seemed to glow from within, and as she grew more confident in her artistry, she transformed deeper emotions into melodies that felt like conversations, confessions, laughter, heartbreak, healing, and self-discovery all woven together so naturally that listeners felt as if they were reading the pages of their own diaries through her music, because Sabrina had unlocked a rare skill, the ability to translate the human experience into lyrics that felt universal yet deeply personal. And with each era, she proved that evolution isn't about leaving your past behind but carrying it with you, polishing it, learning from it, and turning it into something beautiful, and that is exactly what she did as the world watched in awe, witnessing her blossom from a bright Disney star into a bold, boundary-pushing artist whose confidence didn't come from hype but from hard-earned self-belief, the kind you build through years of showing up, trying again, falling, rising, and refusing to quit. And her journey taught millions that patience is not weakness, patience is power, because while others rushed for quick fame, Sabrina invested in longevity, in quality, in authenticity, in learning every corner of her craft, and that slow, steady growth is what made her unstoppable. And as the industry became louder, more competitive, more complicated, Sabrina stayed true to her essence, never chasing trends but creating her own lane. And as Sabrina Carpenter continued carving her path through the world of music and entertainment, something extraordinary happened. She began to embody the very energy she once looked up to in her idols, becoming not just a performer but a symbol of courage for countless people who saw their own struggles reflected in her journey, because Sabrina's rise wasn't built on shortcuts or instant fame but on years of persistence, practice, and painful growth, on moments the world never saw, nights she spent rewriting a single lyric until it finally felt honest, mornings she woke up unsure of her place in an industry that celebrated some and ignored others, moments of doubt that nearly overshadowed her confidence, and yet she pressed forward every single time, proving that true strength is not the absence of insecurity but the willingness to push through it. And that willingness is what transformed her from a small-town girl with a dream into a global star with a purpose, and with each new accomplishment, every tour, every award nomination, every viral performance, she reminded people that success does not erase your past, it elevates it, turning every setback into a stepping stone and every hardship into a chapter of a story that others can learn from, and Sabrina understood this deeply, embracing her past with gratitude rather than embarrassment, knowing that the girl who once performed in tiny rooms and uploaded covers online is the same girl who now commands global stages with a voice so confident it feels like it could set the sky on fire. And as her artistry matured, so did her message, shifting from simple storytelling to transformative storytelling, reminding fans not just to dream but to believe, not just to try but to persevere, not just to survive but to bloom, even in uncertainty, even in loneliness, even in fear. Because Sabrina's own path proved that blooms don't depend on perfect conditions, they depend on unwavering hope, and as more people discovered her music,